Be Defensive Player of the Year, to be first team All-American. Visualization is something that you do before you even step on the field.
I think everything is created twice, once in your mind first and then once in reality.
Spot on with the research. How do you practice self-discipline? Because there are strategies and there's levels of self-discipline.
Some of the stuff you brought up, I didn't even know helps with that. Then I'm like, oh wait, I do that, but I wasn't aware that actually helps me out.
If you fail, that actually helps your confidence because
that's on point. That's exactly how it went. I definitely have a question.
That's self-regulation hitting zero, which makes you perform worse because then you can't regulate. Then you make mistakes in practice, then you make mistakes in game, and then it makes you perform worse. Gets into
that's crazy. Yeah, how deep it goes down into that.
What advice would you have that person to be able to change or shift their mindset?
I got this from my coach, but he said, be, do, have. You want something, you have to be that before you actually have it.
Welcome to the All Mental Podcast for athletes, where we do a deep dive into the mental strategies so you can be able to gain a competitive edge in any sport that you play. I'm your host, Charles, and while I am a licensed therapist, it's only for informational and educational purposes only. This is not a substitute for your own individual therapy. If you do need a therapist, please do find one inside your area. Defensive Player of the Year, first team All-American, first team All-Region, playing football out of Assumption University, Dion Kuinlan. Welcome to the All Mental Podcast for athletes. Man, that's a lot of awards, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be on the podcast.
I'm excited to have you, the first football player on the podcast, so that's dope. And so I just want to jump right on into things. I'm happy you want to talk about visualization. It's a really, really big thing that has an impact on so many different things that we do, from focus to confidence to habit formation and self-discipline. So I think starting there, as we get to talking about confidence and as we get to talking about self-discipline, it will align really well with all the different strategies. So for you, first off, how do you define visualization? And then how do you utilize that when it comes to being a football player?
I would define it as, me personally, I think everything is created twice, once in your mind first and then once in reality. So, if I can't see something in my head first, I can't truly believe it's going to happen, or I'm going to go out there and do that. So that's how I would define it. Seeing it in your mind first is huge for me, especially. I'm sure for other people as well. But yeah, I think taking the time to really think about what I'm about to do, or say it's before a game or practice, just seeing myself in my mind or whatever it is, the defense doing something like really good or really bad. There's going to be bad moments. I think walking yourself through that before it actually happens and handling those things before it actually happens is a huge part of it. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
I think that's really amazing. So when it comes to visualization, is that something that you do way before game? Because I like to break things down into three different areas. You have before game day, during game day, and after game day. So is visualization something that you do before you even step on the field when it comes to thinking about what the offense is going to be doing and how you're going to be playing and how you would operate in different situations?
Yeah, it starts. I mean, for me, it starts at the beginning of the week, but as a team, we would do it the night before the game, which is huge for the whole team, of course. We would have a visualization session at the end of our team meeting about, when things go right, when things go wrong. Picture yourself forgetting about that, picture yourself celebrating that, and then getting back to the present. But yeah, before the night before the game, and then for me personally, I like to go on the field early and then, do my own little visualization and, like just in my mind, just being on the field, being in the present where I am right now and creating that like situation in my head is huge for me before the game. And then during the game, I think it's just that's when you're actually doing it, and you're carrying it out and you're like, this is it right here. This is what I thought about. This is what I created in my mind. So this is what I'm gonna do.
I want to dive deeper into that because it's a couple of different separate things. You talked about doing it with your team, but then also doing it on your own and also doing it on the field. All those things play a big role when it comes to the science around visualization. So I want to pick apart each one because each one is really, really important. When it comes to the team visualization session, is it structured to where like a coach is leading it or a player is leading it, and how do they lead it? Is it just like free form? Like, hey, go off and visualize for 10, 15 minutes? Or is it, hey, let's think about this. Let's think about this. Let's think about that. How does that work?
So it was one of our defensive coach leading it. and we would close our eyes. We would focus on our breathing to start, so it would be our
Mm-hmm.
breathing. We would have our hands on our stomach, but our breathing was the first thing we always talked about. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in confidence, all that, and then breathe out the doubt, stuff like that. And then he would talk, he would lead it. So he would talk, we
Yeah.
would all have our eyes closed. And he would talk about pregame, picture what you have on, what you're wearing, your cleats,
Mm-hmm.
how you feel. Regardless of how you feel, you're performing. You're going to go out there and execute regardless of how you feel. Sick, tired, happy, overwhelmed, like things like that. And then he'd get into the doing like the fundamental stuff, like stepping where you need to step or your eyes where they need to be, like the little things. And then, like I brought up earlier, he would talk about something good happening or then something bad happening, how you handle that, how you forget about that.
Mm.
And regardless of what it is, you have to forget about it because the next play is about to happen.
I want to break that down first. I think those are some really critical steps that he does. So the whole visualization piece, like I said, it can be used in so many different ways. And for example, visualization could be used to think about staying in the present, which is what you mentioned. So
Mm-hmm.
just getting you to be able to breathe is getting you to be inside the present moment. That takes your mind away from focusing on the past or focusing on the future. It gets you right where you need to be. Because you could be thinking about homework, you could be thinking about relationships going on, you could be thinking about you have an injury, a lingering
Yeah.
injury, how that's functioning. Breathing allows you to be able to get inside the present. So yeah, visualization, stuff like meditation are very similar. But meditation is the whole process of being in the present. And so you can blend and you can mix the two. And
Mm-hmm.
then him getting you to imagine what you're wearing brings you to from the present to the future. From that moment, what does that look like? What does that feel like? If you're
Yeah.
nervous, how do you handle those nerves? How do you channel those nerves? And then brings you even further. It's kind of like creating a story in your mind of, okay, obviously all week long we talked about this offensive formation. We're gonna respond to this offensive formation with this defensive formation, or
Mm-hmm.
if we're blitzing, this is what this looks like. And as a free safety, you got to see the whole field as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having you all visualize what you're going to do inside that moment, how it's bringing you to that moment, and then also even furthermore, when things go well, how do you handle that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a really good play. I don't forgot who did it, but it was a Steelers player. He doesn't play on the Steelers anymore. I forgot his name. But anyway, the clock was expiring, 2-minute drill. He gets a first down and he celebrates. I forgot what his name was, the wide receiver, but he celebrates too long instead of giving the ball to the referee, and
Mm-hmm.
that made the clock run down even further. So thinking about how you celebrate quickly. Yes, cheer on, dap your teammates up because that's what's good for the team, good for
Yeah.
morale, but then get your mind back into the present moment. And then vice versa. If something negative happens, how do you handle that? How
Mm-hmm.
do you feel about that? How do you think about that? Don't perseverate on it because you have the next play coming right on up. So there's a book behind me called The Confident Mind. I called it the flat tire. So think about all the flat tires that will happen and how you're going to be able to respond to those flat tires. So how long does that whole session last of visualization before the game?
The team one usually lasts about like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that's huge
Yeah.
because you can we just talked about 4 different aspects of visualization, and you hit those all inside 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what's important is visualization doesn't need to be. People kind of think about like monks and stuff. They're doing it for hours on end. Not
Yeah.
necessarily. You do it for 10 minutes, and the more you do it, the more your brain practices it. And what's helpful is, like you mentioned, for your brain, it draws that picture.
Mm-hmm.
You go through things twice. So when it happens in real time, your brain is like, this is how I respond to this. Remember, Dion, you bugging out too much. This is how you should be responding to it. Let's get back into our focus.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really critical. I think that's really important. And so I think that's something that anyone can be able to do. I will say this though. I was talking to a Harvard soccer player. So I asked him the same thing. We started talking about visualization just a little bit, but he talked about how he envisions everything positive. So everything for him is sunshine and rainbows. He doesn't do anything negative. He's like, if I
Yeah.
think about anything negative on the field, then I start to spiral actually. So I think the caveat, not really caveat, but the thing to listeners is that everyone's different. So
Mm-hmm.
some people like to do the flat tire. Some people like, all right, this happens. Here's how I respond from it. Whether I take a mental picture of that. And then when I'm
Mm-hmm.
on the sideline, when offense is up, then I can break that down and see kind of what went on there. Was that a formation thing that was different than it's a different look? Or was that just I made a mistake or someone else made a mistake and it's actually no big deal, nothing really worry about. So people can do it in different ways. I want to talk about on the field though. Like, so for you, you say you do your own visualization on the field. What is that mental process for you like when you get there on the field?
So I would do it pregame. I would go out
Mm,
there, usually try and go out before everyone else. But yeah, I would walk through like so I had my own stretch routine and stuff like that that I would do before the game. But that helped me like get my mind like I would just think about the game while I was stretching and just
mm,
being like, okay, like I know they're gonna give us this and this is what we're gonna I know the stuff we're gonna run. They come out of anything, but the stuff we've, watched over and over again like this I just create that in my mind as I'm stretching, as I'm just being in a relaxed, state and just by myself. And it's just like, okay, I'm on the field. This is what I'm doing. This is the stretch I'm doing. And I'm just thinking about the game, like thinking about, okay, if they do this, like this is how I see it. Like just little things like that. It wasn't anything crazy. I wouldn't be out there with my
yeah.
eyes closed, just like, you know, but I would go through a stretch and I would just have my mind in a way that's like, okay, like I've been practicing this, I'm ready to do this, and like right before the game, I think that was a huge thing for me. Just
Mm,
it was just an extra confidence, like I'm ready, I'm prepared, I'm
yeah.
stretching, my body is good, my mind is good. Like that was a huge
Yeah.
thing for me.
Don't make me forget about that because that's another thing too with visualization is it really helps with confidence. Really quickly, it's your visualization and also self talk. So it's like you're visualizing what it looks like, and in your mind, it's this is what I've been practicing for. Even if you had a rough day of practicing, even if you had an injury that kept you out for a day or two, it's I'm as prepared as I'm going to be right now in this very moment. I'm going to execute. I'm not going to worry about because once you step on the field, you can't get faster. You can't
Hmm.
get stronger. You're strong and as fast as you're going to be. That's
Yeah,
it. Like no, you might be hyped up, but you can't run any faster than you can right now.
yeah.
So it's I'm where I'm at right now. I'm good where I'm at right now. I'm prepared where I'm at right now. Let's go ahead and let's execute. So visualization is really helpful for that. But I want to back up a little bit. When did you start doing visualization and how impactful has that been for you as you start to get better and better and better throughout your college career?
I actually took that on, like, my preparation routine. Like, I started to take it more serious. Forget what year it was, but I might have been a sophomore. I read the book. My coach actually gave it to me, Mind Gym.
Mm,
And once I read that book, I was like, I need to do something, different.
yeah.
It taught me one of the chapters was solely based on, it talks about like past athletes, like great athletes, how they
Hmm.
would prepare before games. And some dudes would lay
Hmm.
on the floor with a towel over their eyes, just they're no one's talking to them. They're just on the floor. Some guys got to go do some stuff, stretch, do certain things, but everyone had their own specific routine, and not anything was the same between any of the
Yeah.
guys they discussed. So once I read that, I was like, yeah, like I need to get something in that because sometimes I felt before the game like I would feel a certain way. Like I was letting my feelings get to me. Like, oh, I feel tired. I
Mm,
just got off the bus. But like if
yeah.
you incorporate that routine, that's when like it clicked in my mind. Like regardless of how I feel, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is how I
Mm.
get myself ready. So yeah.
Cool. See, that's self discipline. So that's literally the definition of self discipline. Regardless of how I feel, regardless of my emotions, this
Mhm.
is what needs to be done. You can use that in game and out of game too. See, everything weaves in all together.
Yeah.
So, all right, once you actually started getting that pre routine plan down with the visualization, how do you feel like that helped you? I want to dive deeper, 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 deeper. How do you feel like that helped you? Did it help you be more focused when it came to tackling? Did it help you be more have more confidence when things happen? Like, because you're averaging 9.7 tackles a game. You have 97 tackles. That's and that's a huge jump from where you were the year prior. So,
Mhm.
what if you can pinpoint it? What do you think that actually did for you in game concretely?
I think it gave me more confidence, specifically with anything I was doing, whether I was covering
Mm,
someone, whether I was going to fill in a gap. I was doing that as fast as I could. Like this year, I think there was no second guessing. I see this,
mm,
and then I get my eyes back, and here comes the play. I'm going. Like there was no hesitation. I just felt like I was more prepared, and I know that I cared more and prepared more than anyone else that was across from us. So that just gave me more confidence for sure.
mm. Two things. You said you carried more and you prepared more. I want to get to that too right after this because you can be able to use visualization for preparation as well. So, do you feel like from what I hear you saying is that because you visualize, because you're aware of and just took imagery of here's how the offense looks, here's how I need to respond. That made your brain respond faster in the moment of
Yeah.
I see this is what it is. And also you mentioned before too, trusting your preparation. So
Mhm.
because you trust your preparation, there's no need to hesitate, which goes into confidence.
Mhm.
And I'm going to wind all these things together because it might seem like we're going to different directions here, but I'm going to wind everything into one nice little bow. Shout out to Christmas time coming up, one nice little neat bow. So it's like, and that's how I think it really plays a role because I'm going to talk about three things: confidence, focus, and visualization. Utilizing visualization allows your mind to be able to paint an image. Using that image, you can then be able to react with confidence on the field. And you have to be able to trust your coach that is calling the correct play. Trust your body in preparation. You can be able to move how your mind tells you to move. Because what
Mhm.
happens is your mind says, "I got to be inside this area." And in game day, your mind should be just telling your body what to do, and then trusting your body to be able to do that thing. And
Mhm.
what that does when you have that level of confidence, when you have that level of imagery, which is clarity on where you need to be and how you need to be able to do it, that makes your body move faster.
Yeah.
Because if your mind takes time to say, oh, that's this, should I be moving here? You're a half a step behind. And as you know, for football, it's a game in inches. I think people
Yeah.
think football is a game of inches because literally the ball is physically inches. You're 2 inches short from the first down, but that's not it. It's a game of inches with the movement. If your foot is an inch behind, if
Yeah.
your fingertips are an inch behind, you have missed the ball. You could be
Mhm.
tipping, it could be batting it down, it could be an interception, but you have literally missed it by an inch
Mhm.
because you're an inch off, whether it's you're an inch off stepping or an inch off as far as the angle that you take to make the tackle, you miss the tackle or you make the tackle.
Mhm.
If you hesitate for half a second, you shoot the gap late. And then by that time, the guard is pulling around. Now you just got blown up. If you were
Yeah.
there a half a second earlier,
For real.
now the
Yeah.
guard, instead of him hitting you on your whole body, hits you on the shoulder, you can be able to trip up that running back or trip up the wide receiver, whatever. So now maybe you don't make the tackle, but now your homeboy makes a tackle because you make him
Yeah.
go a different way. So when football, and this is for any sport, not just football, everything is inches. Swimming, if you are an inch late or an inch early or a millisecond early or late when it comes to breathing, either your breathing and your capacity is better, so you can last longer during the pool, or your breathing is worse and you get tired a lot faster. So then
Mhm.
on your long relay, you're tired and you're exhausted. And then ultimately you perform worse. So that's how visualization plays a role into confidence and plays a role into focus and plays a role into clarity. And I think that's the bow of how important visualization can be for an athlete, where it seems like a really small 10-minute thing, but really it's getting your brain to practice and visualize how it should be.
Yeah.
Now I want to jump into the before game day strategies. So you mentioned your preparation was a big thing too. And if I'm moving too fast, you want to back up and chime in and talk about something more
No,
in
that's
depthly, like do
perfect.
that first so we can move on. Um, Before game day, do you use visualization in that realm as well?
Um, but right before the game or
Or
earlier in the
like
week?
during the week, during preparation, during practice time?
During the week, not as much so. I would say
Mm,
practice is the time for me to fail and you know see things succeed against me, and then I'm like, okay, I correct those things during the week, and then I'm like, okay, like I fixed that. I need to work on this. Like this is what I need to see again. So during
yeah.
the week, it's kind of like you know that time to mess up. It's that time to get corrected in film. We have practice, and then the next morning wake up for film, taking notes, and it's like okay, like coach, coaches you up, and you're like okay, like now I
Yeah.
know that. But once that correction is made, that correction is made. So I think
Mm,
during the week it was my time to fail, succeed, and like it would go up and down. But some weeks I felt like I had the worst week of practice ever, and I was like, oh my god. But that those weeks and those hardest weeks of practice were probably some of my best games. And it's like you feel overwhelmed, but
mm,
then you get to the moment, you're like, I've seen everything I could have seen. I've seen this look, so you're
yeah.
ready for it. That failing and that hard, practice being hard was actually a good thing. So stuff like
Mm,
that during the week. Not as much visualization during the week though. It was more of like testing things out and a lot of failing and you know difficult times for sure.
mm. I want to go into the failure, but before I get there, I might have something new for you, Dion. Since you already bought into the visualization piece, another way you can use visualization for before game day stuff is motivation and actually helps you do the thing. For example, when it comes to just like training as far as like weightlifting or agility drills or actually watching film or things that you have to do to be able to prepare for the game, you can use visualization in these two different ways. The first way is if you visualize yourself being successful, like having 10 tackles, having an interception, forced fumble, whatever, visualize how that will look. What that does is it actually boosts your motivation. It makes you want to be able to do that thing. So to make it even more detailed, let's say you wake up early, you don't feel like going for a lift, but you know, like, I need to go for a lift. If you take 5 minutes to just visualize, even for 2 minutes, all right, I'm gonna visualize myself finishing that lift, feeling really good, like feeling pumped, like let's go, I'm ready for it. Ooh, and that's gonna help me in the game because I'm gonna be making big tackles against Derrick Henry sized people. So I'm really ready for it. That actually helps build motivation. What it
Mhm.
doesn't do is actually help you get to the gym, but it makes you feel motivated. The
Yeah.
second half is if you visualize yourself doing the process of something, that will actually help you do that thing. So if you visualize yourself, if you let's say you have chest that day, doing incline press, and let's see if you have leg day, everyone wants to skip leg day, but if you visualize yourself doing squat, doing single leg squat, doing calf raises, doing your actual whole routine, what
Mhm.
that does is actually helps your mind do that thing. So you're more inclined to actually do the workout as you're supposed to if you use visualization and just imagine yourself doing that thing. So you can use those
Okay.
both in combination of going to the gym, don't feel like going there, let me take 5 minutes. Same thing, breathe, because that's going to help you get into the present moment, block stuff out, focus on your breath, and then it's literally the same thing your coach is doing. Picture yourself finishing the workout, feeling strong, feeling healthy, feeling ready to go. Picture yourself making tackles on the field. Then start visualizing your entire workout process and then leave
Mhm.
and go do your workout. That's
Yeah.
another way to be able to use visualization. And it's a key way too. And it's actually extremely, really, really helpful, especially like when I was doing cross country. I don't feel like going for a 7 mile run like at
Yeah.
6 a.m. No.
Yeah. No.
but
Sometimes you're gonna be like, nah.
but it was
For sure.
helpful. So I like that visualization piece, and we can talk about it rolls into everything. But I think that's a strong foundation factor because it seems like that is a strong thing that you do that helps you really be able to be successful in a football field. All right, you mentioned failure, and you mentioned your week of preparation is all about learning things and failing and trying things again and kind of really smoothing out the process. Why do you think that's important for you as an athlete? Like to have that mindset that you have of this practice is all about failure and learning and getting and accepting feedback from the coaches and then figuring things out. Why do you feel like that's important for you as an athlete?
I think it's huge because, especially for us players, if we don't, if that doesn't happen during practice and that happens during the game,
Mm,
we might not know how to respond if that because this is new. We're
yeah.
experiencing something totally brand new during a game, and it's like, oh, you know what I mean? But
Mm,
during the week, if it happens in practice, it's practice. There's no win or loss in a practice. You're either getting better or you're not, or you're growing or you're dying. So, um, like for that, like we were just trying to grow every chance we got. Especially for me, like I wanted to be coached up. I wanted to be criticized. Like I needed those little things. Like do this better,
mm,
do this better. I'm always trying to get better. So I think that like failing, seeing something like, oh, I need to see that again. Like this needs to
mm,
run that back. Things like that just help you become more prepared for the game. And when the game comes, it's like I've this is what I messed up on. This is the same formation. Maybe it's about to be the same play. And
mm,
if it is the same play, I'm not missing this one this time. So
yeah.
just getting that repetition down, seeing as much stuff as possible, and if we're gonna fail at it, at least we have it on film and we can correct it. I
Yeah.
think that's huge.
So you feel like that brings in the confidence type of thing. So I'm
Yeah,
kind of hearing that you failing and accepting failure is important because it's going to have help you have the confidence when game day happens. You're able to pretty much know what's going on. They're not going to give you the same looks every single time,
yeah, of
but
course.
like it's going to give you the confidence of I know how to be able to attack this
Mhm,
because I failed in practice,
mhm,
which is
yeah,
fascinating. Because that's also in the research. As we move into the conversation about confidence, I'm going to mix in self discipline here, but that's also in the research too. I
Yeah.
think when people think confidence, sometimes they make the mistake of confidence means I'm having the confidence to do everything correctly, to do everything
Mhm.
right. If I do
Yeah.
something wrong, that's going to impact my confidence in a negative way.
Yeah.
Your mindset, though, is spot on with the research where actually, if you fail, mostly in practice, not in game, but if you fail, that actually helps your confidence because even if I want to explain this way that's really concrete. Hmm. Defense is a little hard. I'm gonna switch to the offense for a second. So as a
Yeah, that's
quarterback,
fine.
it is a little harder. So I think people get this analogy better. So as a quarterback, let's say, think about people that don't play football, but like as a quarterback, let's say you have to throw the football in a really really tight window against a particular defense.
Yeah.
If you're a quarterback in practice and you practice that play and you mess up and you mess up and you mess up and you mess up, through that failure, you're learning how you need to actually throw that football. You realize, oh, that's too far left. Oh, that's too far right. Oh, that's too late. I need to throw the football as soon as he plants his foot in 5 yards, then that's where the football needs to be thrown.
Mhm.
Okay, I got it now. And then in the game, because you had that failure, you have confidence of during this look, I know how I need to throw the football to be able to squeeze it into that window.
Yeah.
Compared to if you avoid things because you're worried about failing about it, so then you don't try it in practice, then when game day comes and it's 3rd and 7 and you need this play because you're down 7 and there's 3 minutes left on the game clock, and if we don't get this, we're not going to get the ball back. We're running this play. This is what coach called. I can't be like, hey coach, I don't like it. Just do another one. Like there's not
Yeah.
enough time on the clock. You need to run that play.
Mhm.
If you never run that play in practice because you avoid it, and then it comes up in game day, you're not going to know how to throw it.
Mhm.
You won't even have a clue. Like, do I throw it on the second step, fourth step, once they already turn? Like, and
Mhm.
then that's how you mess up. And then
Yeah.
that's how you spiral. So just failing is important because it teaches you how to be able to do something. So I think that mindset shift is what's called cognitive reframing. You shift the mindset to be, this is important. Actually, I backed it up. I don't want to use that back. It is cognitive reframing, but I want to actually relate that to self discipline. Back it up. Self discipline is what I want to relate it to. I think that's a better. I think that's the next better strategy for confidence you're talking about, because I feel like self discipline is the definition of self discipline is to do something regardless of your emotions, regardless of how you're feeling. Do what needs to get done to be able to have the overall goal. The overall goal is to win.
Mhm.
That's it. Whatever needs to be done to be able to win, that's what needs to be done, regardless of your emotions. So I think if someone's struggling with failing in practice or looking bad in practice or whatever, if you have the mindset of self-discipline of, do I need to run this play again to be able to get it better at it? Yes or no?
Mhm.
Yes, run the play again. Do I
Mhm.
need coach's advice to be able to get better at it? Because they can see what I'm doing. I can't see what I'm doing.
Mhm.
I need coach's advice to be able to get better at it. I hate getting chewed out. I hate X, Y, and Z, but do I need it? Yes or no?
Mhm.
Yes? Okay. So I think if
Yeah.
people start reframing their mindset to, is this going to help me get better? Is this going to help my team win? Yes? Then okay. Everything that is in the yes column, that's what I need to be able
Mhm.
to do. So
Yeah.
I feel like the way you're describing it sounds like that's how your brain does it. But you tell me,
Yeah.
is that
No.
on point or is
Yeah.
that a
No.
bit
That's
off?
that's on point. That's how I. Yeah. That's exactly
Mm,
how it went. I need this to win. So I'm gonna do everything I can. If I need to get corrected, correct me. Because if not, this is gonna show up in the most crucial moments. And that's, if you're not ready for it, then it's coming right at you. That's just how football works. But I don't know about any other sports, but if you don't correct something in the biggest moment, like 4th and 1, and you're supposed to
mhm,
be somewhere where you're not, that's where the ball's going to hit. Or you don't cover your guy, it's going to him like every single time. If you're not in the right drop, you know, it's going right there. It's just how football works. So if you don't train your mind like that, it's tough to, football is not going to be something you want to do. But it's hard. It's definitely a lot, mentally and physically. But if football is just about that. It's if you don't correct something, it's coming right for you in the game. So that's how it
mm.
goes.
How did you, to dive deeper on that? How did you develop that thought process? Because I feel like that's something you just come out naturally with when you start playing football. But how did
Yeah.
you develop that mindset to be able to switch from? Because usually people get corrected and they get defensive about it.
Yeah.
oh, well, it wasn't me. Like, oh, well, the linebacker, like they missed whatever.
Yeah.
How did your mindset change? How did your mindset change into that? And then what helped your mindset change into that?
So I think a huge thing for me specifically was being able to play as a freshman and
Mm,
sophomore. Well, technically a sophomore, but yeah, I had to like in game, I gave up some touchdowns or things like that. And I had to like feel how that felt. Like I just let my
mm.
teammates down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when you're that young and you get to experience, you're exposed to that feeling. It's like, this is real. Like I can't be messing around during practice, can't be messing around during film. Um, so sometimes you got to learn the hard way. I think for me, being able to play at a young age in college and, um, like getting exposed to that kind of feelings and not everything is always good, and especially when you play defense, they're going to catch the ball, you can do everything right, they're going to score sooner or later, but you have that mindset of they can't score if we don't let them, then
Hmm.
you'll be over prepared for things. But yeah, definitely getting exposed to playing at a young age in college, especially because that it's real, it's serious. So that really opened up my mind to me trying to be more coachable.
You mentioned a couple times like preparation, you were taking that too seriously, and then when you messed up, you had to be more serious. Before, do you feel like you weren't as serious as a player, and you were just kind of like, "Woo, I'm in college," and then you had to figure it out, or how did that? Were you like not a serious player in the sense like the mental game kind of thing, and you tightened it up, or were you always that way?
For me, I was always like, I knew I wanted to play college football, you know.
Mm,
So everything I did in high school was, I was on myself, like self discipline,
yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like I always had the preparation, the mental preparation, but if certain things would happen to me, I'd be like, I need to up it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
I was
mm,
never that guy that was like goofing off, laughing. The coach was like, "Yo, pay attention." Like I
yep.
was always, locked in. I didn't need that extra, push.
Nice.
But yeah, like certain things would happen. I'd be like, I know I'm better than this. Like I can,
Mm.
you know. So that's when I started taking my preparation really more serious. If I wasn't already, I would just up it.
And where do you think that came from? Like life wise, where do you think that came from? Was it does it you think it just came naturally for you? Do you think that was because of friends that you saw where they are at, or where did that push, where did that drive come from?
Um, I don't really know. This
Mm,
might be weird to say, but I've always been the way I was, like when I was little, and like I don't know, like football was just the sport I always like. I think I was born to play. Actually, I have a funny story. So, my mom took me to get a picture taken, and I had a toy football when I was younger. I forget what age,
yeah,
but they took it away from me because she didn't want to have it in the picture,
yeah.
and I instantly just started crying, and I just wouldn't stop. So I actually took the picture with the football in my hand, like on a little horse, and
Mm,
it was just like this is what I was meant to do. So I didn't ever need that extra, that extra like, yo, come on, like I never
yeah.
needed that. It was always like, this is what I want to do, and that's it.
I think if someone's struggling with that, what advice would you have for them? Someone that wants, because I think this is a lot of people. They want something, right? And they can clearly define, oh, I want this. I want to go to so many kids I've had for count like just in the school system, 'cause that's what usually I work in the school system, that want to be a professional player, that want to do this, I want to do that.
Yeah,
Clearly defined goal, but the preparation to do so, they don't do it.
yeah,
As an adult, I want to do this, and they just don't do it.
yeah,
So if someone was in that room, they had a clear goal, but you found out like they find themselves just not having that discipline, not having that mindset of I need to get better, not having that mindset of I want coaches to criticize me and coach me because they're a coach for a reason. I'm
yeah.
going to take that to heart and use that to be able to push it and get better. What advice would you have that person to be able to change or shift their mindset?
Um, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, like if you really want to do what you say you want to do, then it shouldn't be a question for you to change up what your habits or anything. Like people always say, like you said, like, oh, I want to be a professional athlete. Well, you essentially have to like be a professional athlete before you actually are one. Like you have to have
Right.
the habits and the traits. I'm pretty sure I got this from my coach, but he said, be, do, have. Like, you want something, you have to be that before you actually have it. Like, you want to be a champion. Okay, how would a champion attack this lift? How would a champion attack this conditioning we're about to have at 6 a.m.? No one else is awake. So being that before you actually are it is huge. And not a lot of people are going to understand it either. But if you
Yeah.
really want to do what you want to do, then it shouldn't be a question of I got to do this. That's it. I got to do this. There's nothing else I can do about it.
And I think I'm gonna ask you one more question before I give my ideas on it. So, Dan, what do you want to be? What do you that B do? What is your B?
I mean, everyone wants to play in the NFL. That's been a
Yeah,
dream of mine. So definitely that. But I mean, I'm trying to play professional football. So everything I've done up to that point is trying to be a professional football player.
let's go deeper.
Yeah.
Like deeper than that. Like professional football player. What round are we talking? You getting drafted? Like which team you getting drafted to? Like what? You know what I mean? Like what style of player do you want to be like? Let's get deeper because I know you thought about it. So
Yeah.
what is that full picture of the B?
As for like rounds and stuff like that, I don't even think about stuff like that.
Mm,
I just think about being on a team, making a team. I'm not really coming from the biggest of schools either, so I know how that goes. It's hard. Like everyone,
yeah.
there's a bunch of people trying to do what I'm trying to do. Um, but I don't picture that process. I just picture
Mm,
myself like being on a team. So regardless of how I get there, I think is irrelevant for me. Obviously, it's hard, it's difficult, but I'm ready for that. I mean, this is something I want to do my whole life. But I just picture myself. As for a team, I would love to play for a New York team. I think playing for a home.
oh yeah, you're a Giants fan and Jets fan.
Yeah. So I like the Giants and the Jets. I just think it would be awesome to represent your home, state in New York. But honestly, any team that would take me, I would want to be on that team. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think that answers your question of if someone's struggling, what should their mindset shift be? So, and it's still STEM. We're still talking about self discipline here,
Mhm.
as in like regardless of your emotions, does this help you achieve your overall goal? Yes or no? I think your overall goal is to make a team, to be a
Mhm.
professional athlete. So because that's your goal, and values also plays a role in this too. So if you figured out, what's in your value system of hard work, determination, never quitting, always excelling, always improving, which is some
Mhm.
of the values that we talked about through the podcast. So if someone doesn't have that mindset, first thing they should do is write down what their values are. What are
Mhm.
your values and what do you want to be? Okay, great. How do your values align to what you want to be? Obviously, being a
Yeah.
professional football player, you need all those values. I forgot, I looked it up one time as far as the percentage of kids that play football in high school to the percentage of kids that play football in college, the percentage
Mhm.
of kids that go from college to actually playing on an NFL team. It's extremely small. I mean, you do
Yeah.
have like 53-man roster, but it's still very small percent chance, and you have practice squad. So more than the NBA. You got a better chance, better shot in the NBA,
Yeah.
but it's still really, really difficult.
Yeah.
But if
For
you
sure.
understand where you want to be at, you understand the values it takes to be able to get there, then your self discipline becomes, is what I'm doing right now going to help me get to this point?
Mhm.
Yes or no? And the more
Yeah.
you ask yourself that question, if you just ask yourself that question for every single decision, now we're going to start talking about self discipline here because self discipline is broken down to three different levels. But if you ask yourself that question for every single thing you're doing, hell, write it out. And if it's like, no, 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 that's the stuff that need to be able to change. If you
Yeah.
have a lot of yeses on there, then it's like, great, I'm moving in the right direction. How can I
Mhm.
further optimize that? How can I do that a bit better, etc.? But that's the first thing someone should be able to do. And
Yeah.
then whether they do it or not is whether they do it or not. There's other strategies. You can use visualization to be able to help yourself do the things that you say you want to do and help yourself imagine and gain motivation. Having a value system also helps you have motivation because it's a clearer picture. But I think that value system and knowing where you want to be and then being able to imagine that helps you have self discipline to make the choices that you're currently making to be able to play at a professional level, which is extremely important. So, and this will be our third topic here is self-discipline. What is your definition? I said the definition three times because I guess I can
Yeah.
say that
I
now.
think. Yeah.
You gotta know it, damn it! But I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. But
Yeah.
how do you? This is a good one. How do you practice self-discipline? What are strategies you use to be self-disciplined? Because there are strategies. And there's levels to self-discipline. Self-discipline is the highest level there is. So what specific strategies do you do to be self-disciplined?
Yeah, that like my lock screen, I would make it something like we had a wall in our locker room that was it was all the players that had been on professional teams from our
Mm,
college. So I took a picture of that, put it as my
mm,
lock screen. So every time, that's still my lock screen right now. Like that's where I want to go. So every
nice.
decision I make is like, is this helping me? Like, is this, for the most part, it's yes, because I understand what, I've went through a lot of stuff where it's like, I understand this is the right thing to be doing. And this is not,
Right.
but it's
Nice.
definitely hard to get to that like point where it's like, you don't really need like to second guess yourself, but it's hard. It's hard for sure.
Yeah, what do you mean by second guess yourself? Like second guess yourself in the moment during game time, or second guess yourself as far as can you get to where you need to go?
Definitely, that definitely happens. As far as getting where you need to go, there's gonna be times where you're like, "Is this really gonna pay off? Like all this stuff I'm
Mm,
doing." But part of the process is, you know, not letting that get to you. There's always gonna be people who are like, "Yo, what are you doing?" Or, in
mm,
your mind. And the hardest thing is with yourself. Like you're doing a bunch of stuff, and you're like, "Is this really gonna pay off?" But the part of the battle is quieting that doubt in your voice,
mm,
so in your mind too. So yeah.
mm. How do you quiet that doubt? What are some things that you do to do that?
I think one thing is I work hard, even harder.
Mm,
Whether it's training speed, strength, going to the field by myself, like certain stuff you got to do, but doing more of those things, doing it better,
yeah.
helps you gain that confidence to quiet that voice. And it's like, I can do this and I will do this, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
All right. So when you get that thought in your head of like, what am I? Is this really going to pay off? Is this really? Am I really doing all this stuff as far as I can be eating so many tubs of ice cream? Like, is
Yeah.
it really paying
Yeah,
off?
stuff like that.
What a what emotion does that evoke for you when that thought process comes up?
Like you said, when you think about you could be doing something else.
Yeah.
Like on weekends, like a lot of people like to go out. If you really want to do what you guys say you gotta do, you gotta drop that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all you see all your friends out, you see your friends doing stuff, and you're like, that looks like fun. But so that really invokes in me like I can do this. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing the right things to get where I want to go. Like when you
Mm,
get that feeling of like, okay, I'm missing out on some stuff, like that sacrifice, it's got to happen if you want to go where you want to go. So it gives me
mm.
more motivation to be like, okay, I'm being self disciplined. I'm in the right spot. Like I got to keep going though.
When things are going well as far as like you're following the process that you need to follow. So you're following the working out, the stretching, the agility. You're following your diet plan. That
Yeah,
brings you, you can say emotion, maybe I guess like joy or satisfaction rather that I'm on the right path. I understand it's a journey. When you stray from the path, you talked about how that actually makes you more motivated to go out there and train harder. So if you like stray from the path or even think about straying from the path, what emotion does that bring up?
that's tough. Like say I'm doing
Mm,
something when I could be doing something else to better myself as an athlete. For
yeah,
me, like that brings about like I kind of get like not angry, but I'm like, damn, like I'm missing out on an opportunity to be getting better.
yeah, yeah,
Um, sometimes it's good to get away from it for a little bit, but for me personally, it's like, damn, like I missed an opportunity to be doing something to better myself as an athlete. So
yeah,
yeah, that's the kind of emotion I would feel like.
yeah. I think that's important because anger is in line with the research. Don't be. It's good to
Yeah,
feel angry, Dion.
yeah. Even though
And
I
what
don't
makes
like to all the
Yes, yes, I knew it. All right, so
time.
anger's. I didn't think about self discipline, but anger is really cool because I think this happens to a lot of athletes, and it's like, do I feel bad about it? Feel angry about it? Should I not feel angry about it? It's okay. To feel angry about it because anger operates in the left frontal cortex of your brain. Blah 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 jargon just to say that the left frontal cortex of your brain is where motivation is lights up in, and so anger invokes motivation. Anger can be good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. The bad part about anger is that it makes you narrow-minded and very easily frustrated. Bad
Yeah,
for in game. That's when you make mistakes and you don't cover double moves and you go
yeah,
over to the left side of the field and abandon the right side of the field and let over a touchdown because you got angry. Bad for during game for the most
yeah.
part. for the most part. Some people fall off of anger. Like if you're Ray Lewis in it and it's making you play better, do it up.
Do it,
But
yeah. Do that.
it's really good for before game day stuff because anger invokes motivation. So it sounds like, and let me know if I'm wrong, but it sounds like when you're not operating in the way that you feel like you need to operate to get to where you need to go, that invokes anger, which actually motivates you to go ahead and do that thing even harder. It's
Yeah.
like you might have fun in the moment. You went to a party, that was cool. I had to dance, ooh, nice. But then you're like, but I could have been doing this instead. Like, Dion, this is where you want to go.
Yeah.
You're messing up, and you might get down on yourself, but that's okay because you can shift that feeling into like, all right, let's get pissed off about it. So I make
Mhm.
sure I hit the bed early today so I can wake up a bit early tomorrow to be able to go make up for that lost time that I had today,
Yeah.
which is still going to be helpful. So anger is actually, it can be a really useful and utilized tool if you use it in the right dimension. All right, cool. So feel angry, Dion. It's all good. It's
Yeah.
all good. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. All right, self discipline. I want to break it down into 3 different categories. Visualization is a part of self discipline. I'm damn sure you use most of these strategies for self discipline. So I'm kind of glad you couldn't say. I'm glad you didn't like think of any because as I'm saying, I'm gonna be like, I do that, I do that, I do that. You're gonna do all this.
Yeah.
So there's 3 levels of self discipline. The bottom is self control. Self control, and I'll name all 3 so people don't get confused. It's self control, self regulation, self discipline. They're all different. Self control is controlling your emotions in the moment. So that's like you're on your phone scrolling, you should be doing something else. You have to control your emotions to say, oh, I'm on my phone wasting time. I need to resist scrolling to the next reel or the next TikTok and get off my phone and do this. That's self control. In the moment, stopping what you're doing, fixing it. Your strategies for it. First one is the visualization we talked about as far as actually, I'm going to go more foundational than that. I'm going to back up. The first one is having a plan. If writing out a plan for how to be able to achieve your goal. I was talking with an offensive player of the year for soccer. Her name is Hannah. She talked about goal achievement. And one of the core foundations of that is writing out your goal. So, first thing to do, if you have trouble with staying self disciplined, you should do this regardless, is writing
Yeah.
out your goal. Your goal is to make it to the NFL. That is your goal. Keeping it vague. Nice. Your sub goals are all the things that you need to do to be able to make it there. Working out, stretching, eating healthy, getting defensive player of the year, getting first team All American, jumping on a podcast to talk about your mental game to improve that. All that stuff falls under your sub goals, right?
Mhm.
Reading certain books to be able to make sure that your mind is as sharpened as possible. The sub goals can change because your coach might be like, "Hey, Dion, you're not strong enough. Like your bench press isn't where it needs to be."
Yeah.
So then you change your sub goal. All right, so I'm gonna do bench press just strictly for the combine because that's coming up. So I need to focus on that particularly for this moment. So your sub goals can shift, and then once that's done, then maybe you shift somewhere else, or maybe it's, hey, I don't know enough about empty formation. So when that gets run, I'm not cute on that. So if I'm interviewing with a team, it's a team that talks about empty a lot, and I don't know about how I should cover empty.
Mhm.
Okay, my sub goal is to do this. Sub goals should be changed and should be fluid. Regardless, you should have a plan. If you have a plan, then you know what to do. And that's going to
Mhm.
help you stay more disciplined because you actually know what you're supposed to be doing. It's the worst if you're scrolling your phone, you have no clue what you're supposed to be doing. So having a plan. The second thing is utilizing visualization, like I mentioned before, of visualizing, like knowing what your plan is. I should be going to the gym or I should be reading this book. I'm going to visualize myself finishing the book. I'm going to visualize myself reading chapters 2 through 8, whatever the case may be. I'm going to visualize myself writing down notes. That's going to actually help you, oddly enough, actually do that thing. Having if then plans is another one. So literally, it's if this happens, then I'm going to do this. If I start to get distracted on my phone, then I'm going to do this. If I get distracted on my phone, then I'm going to put something on my phone screen that reminds me what my goal is every single time on my phone.
Mhm.
That's an if then plan that you created for yourself.
Mhm.
And then also a big one is just limiting distractions is a really easy one. So if you find yourself playing video games, take out video games. Like if you have a PS5, just remove it from your room. If you don't have
Yeah.
it, you can't do it. If you find yourself eating unhealthy, don't buy that food. You don't buy it, you can't eat it unless you're going to your neighbor's house. Like, yo, you got some Oreos, and like that's weird. So just limit the distractions. So
Yeah.
those are things for self control, limiting distractions, visualization, having a plan, having if then plans. self-reg, and these also overlap too. So self-regulation is keeping with the same analogy of the phone. You see your phone, I want to use my phone, I want to get distracted, but before you even pick it up, you're able to regulate your emotions to not pick up the phone. That's self-reg. So that's like the next level. You don't even pick up the phone to begin with.
Mhm.
Strategies for that, I can't, so many on my phone, I can't remember them all in my head. Strategies for that is definitely, oh, I missed a big one. Oh, for self-control is meditation, actually. Forgot about that. Meditation is a really key one for self-control because meditation, again, is a bit different than visualization. Meditation is the focus of being in the present moment. If you are in the present moment, you make better decisions. I think I say this every podcast, but when you're inside the present moment, what happens is you're more aware of your emotions. When you're more aware of your emotions, more sciencey brain stuff, your amygdala in your brain is what controls, plays a big role in controlling your emotions. What they found was when you're actually aware of how you're feeling, your amygdala activity decreases, which means you're able to then take a step back psychologically, like, I'm feeling nervous. Oh, word? That's interesting. So here's what I should do.
Mhm.
Since you're decreased in the amygdala, you can make better decisions.
Yeah.
So you should be meditating on a regular basis, just focusing on the present tense. So if you're doing a whole set of visualization, it could be minute like for the first 2 minutes, focusing on your breath, focusing on your senses, what you feel. You can actually feel like your shirt touching your shoulder. You can actually feel your feet touching the carpet, which you won't. Now you probably just felt your feet touching the carpet.
I did.
You did, I
I
know.
did.
Yeah. So it's like then you can actually hear like the humming of my computer. You can hear whatever. That trains your brain to be in the present moment, which actually is really helpful for focus in games. So that's actually great and really helpful for being able to enter into flow state, which is really great. But as far as self discipline goes, when you lose control of wasting time, you're able to better in that moment realize what's happening and then make an adjustment.
Yeah.
I'm wasting time. I realize that, oh, snap. All right, my if then plans is if I'm wasting time playing video games, let me just move this out my room.
Mhm.
I can operate on what my plan is. And then you do that faster and faster. Instead of wasting 30 minutes before you do something, now you wasted 5 minutes, which is better. You just say 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Self-reg, like I mentioned, is before you even pick up the phone, you make a decision. All these strategies really overlap. So, using visualization in the way of what your plan should be, having a plan, having if-then plans, all that stuff is going to help your self-regulation. The interesting part about self-regulation is this, though. How self-regulation works is is just the best analogy I can come up with it. As self-regulation is a battery. Everyone's battery is the same exact size. Self-regulation is basically your body's ability to be able to regulate its thoughts and emotions, which is really, really important during game day.
Mhm.
Let's say, um, I want to use it like in a football terminology. You play free safety, but let's say you play free safety, but you actually lined up on a slot, right? Your self-regulation is to cover that slot receiver. If they've been running hitches all game long, your self-reg is going to be like, hey, well, here's a good example. Your self-reg would be like, all right, they run a hitch. I want to make sure I keep proper positioning. I don't know exactly what it is. I'll make sure I keep proper positioning for the hitch, and
Mhm.
making sure they can't turn back upfield.
Yeah.
What happens is eventually is their self-regulation runs out to where they run hitches all day long. Now you bite on the hitch. You go to intercept the ball and it's a double move. He goes outfield and then it's like 20, 30 yards. That means that's your self-regulation going down the drain. You didn't regulate, then your coach is pissed like, Dion, stay sound. An easy example is defensive
Yeah.
ends. D end, you have contained. For those who know what that means is a defensive end plays on defense on the end of the line, making sure that nothing goes outside because that's where a lot of big plays happen. Those that don't know. The end, your job is to have contained. What happens is, usually not in the beginning of the game, but later on in the game, what happens? It's an RPO, DN crashes down, quarterback pulls, you know it's a running quarterback.
Yeah.
They pull, they beat you on the outside
Mhm.
because you lost your self-regulation. Your coach is pissed at you, like, you have contained, idiot. You know what you're supposed to be doing, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I just wanted to get to like the tackle for loss so bad.
Yeah.
That self-reg, what happens is your ability to be able to regulate your emotions decreases over time. Now back to the battery analogy is it decreases over time throughout the day. So the more things you regulate with, And this is really big for college athletes too, because you're regulating throughout the day. You're regulating to make sure you study. You're regulating to make sure you get to class on time. You're regulating to make sure that you're on time for your film and study sessions. The more you use self-regulation, the more your battery drains. The only way to recharge your battery is to do something that doesn't require self-regulation, which is sleeping or like mindless activities. That recharges your battery. So if you're draining your battery all day long or all game long, then you eventually make poor decisions. The way
Mhm.
to be able to counteract that is meditation is a really big one. You stay in the present moment, you stay more focused, yada, yada, yada. But a really big one specifically for self-regulation is, and this is interesting and odd, but this is like 3 or 4 research studies replicated this and it all worked out the same. If you do activities that require self-regulation, working out or literally sitting up straight, literally tracking your bank account, this is actual studies, actually helps your self-regulation. While you can't make your battery go bigger, you can make the battery drain slower, be more efficient. So
Mhm.
if someone wants to work on the self-regulation, which as I just described, plays a role in to before game day, during game day is huge, doing things that regulate your emotions all the time trains your brain to have higher self-regulation. For football, you play night games, which is not good already because you spent your whole day regulating, and now you're playing a night game. Now your battery's already depleted.
Mhm.
But the more you're able to regulate your body, every time you're able to resist eating that treat, every time you're able to regulate to be able to do what you're supposed to do instead of wasting time, you're training your self regulation. The cool part is, no matter what self regulation you train, helps to build your overall battery. Because they had people just focus on sitting up straight. What they found was that actually improved their overall self reg. Going to the gym on a regular basis is self-reg. Having people track their spending improve their self-regulation in other areas, which makes no sense, but it did and it happened. So that's
That's
self-reg.
crazy.
It's crazy, it's nuts, but you can use it to your advantage. And
Mhm.
the last one is self-discipline. The biggest one for self-discipline is you can use all those strategies, but the biggest thing for self-discipline is cognitive reframing, which we already talked about, is reframing the thought process to like, it's cold outside. This sucks. I don't want to go outside. To am I going to be playing cold games in NFL? Yes. Do I want to be like the Miami Dolphins who can't play in the cold? No. Therefore, therefore, I am going to play in the cold because that's what it takes to be able to win,
Mhm.
regardless of my emotions. Point blank. Period. So that is self discipline. I am damn sure as I was talking, you're like, I do all these different things.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's like it's cool. They even been talking for an hour. That's what I mean. It's like cool because all like no matter who I talk to does all these things, but it's important, hopefully, for you, you're like, oh damn, like I do that. I didn't know that helps my self reg.
Yeah, I didn't
Oh,
know that.
I didn't know this helps my self discipline. I didn't know doing visualization like this also helps confidence. So then when you do those things again, that knowledge I hope helps even sharper your mind that is already very strong because to be defensive player of the year, to be first team all American, to be all region, it takes a really sharp mind to be able to get that. But I hope this helps sharpen it even further. That's why I like these conversations. And then someone else listening is like, "Oh snap! Like that's really cool. I didn't know that."
Some of the stuff you brought up, I didn't even know helps with that. But then I'm like, oh wait, I do that, but I don't. I wasn't aware that that actually helps me out. I definitely have a question. So, what do you think about like what do you think about like how important like getting away from like your your processes, like taking time away from it, like making time to do something like that's not as like what I'm saying, like full like
Focus.
intense and what I'm saying, because
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I do a lot of a lot of stuff throughout the day. That's where it's like, okay, training, doing this, going to stretch,
Mm-hmm.
like little stuff, going to the field, just doing some light stuff. But then it's like, damn, I'm doing a lot. Like I should probably like dial it back for a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. Like what do you think is like something like do you think that's important? Like definitely is important, but like some things like maybe this is a good time to like relax and play video games. Like maybe this is a good time to just sit on the couch and
Yeah.
take your mind. Like how important is getting your mind off of like
Well,
what you're doing?
let me ask you this: if you don't do that, what happens?
So you start to like burn out. You're like, damn, like
Yeah.
I'm overworking.
Yeah.
Mentally you're just like, I need a break. So
Yeah.
like stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So what's cool is like that self reg.
Hmm.
So when people say like recharge your battery, it's literally self-reg. 'Cause like you mentioned, you're doing so many things that regulate so much of your time, especially as a collegiate athlete, because you have both. People forget you have both academics. That's self-regulation. Like you're using so much self-regulation if you don't recharge your battery, which is doing mindless things like sleeping, being on the couch, playing video games, just cooling it. Then what happens is your battery gets depleted. Like if it's at 100%, it
Mhm.
drops down to like 25% each day just from what you're doing. And then let's say you don't recharge it, you get poor sleep. Sleep is a whole different thing. Sleep is a whole different conversation and topic. But if you don't recharge that battery, when you wake up, then you're at 50%. Then you drain it again. So eventually you just start hitting zero, which makes
Yeah.
you perform worse because then you can't regulate. Then you make mistakes in practice, and you make mistakes in game, and then it makes you perform worse. So yeah, recharging your battery is extremely important. And I think having a plan for how you do that. So whether you want to like Kyler Murray it and like play video games a bunch, and that helps you be able to recharge your battery, like that's what helps you recharge your battery. And people make fun of him for it, but for Kyler, that might be his way of being able to get his battery back up there, just
Yeah.
cooling it. So if you build that into your schedule of, I'm gonna take 15 minutes to just relax on the couch. I'm gonna take a half an hour to play video games with the homies. I'm gonna take this time, and it's specifically to recharge your battery to get it back up to maybe won't ever hit 100% unless you're taking a whole week off, but to get it
Yeah.
back up to 80, 85%. And then now that you know that's what that is, then you can really dial it in. Like, okay, so if I take 45 minutes to chill, that I feel really, really recharged afterwards. All right, that's
Yeah.
nice. If I take 20 minutes, I don't really feel that recharge. I need to take more time. If I take
Yeah.
2 hours, I'm wasting time. So there's a
Yeah.
balance there somewhere. So I think it's really important, like daily stuff to be able to do it. And then maybe every like month or so, you do something like off the grid for the weekend. We're
Yeah.
just doing nothing to really get that full recharge. So I think that's important in knowing how self-regulation works. You can then end up planning that into your regular routine, weekly, daily, monthly routine as an athlete.
You talked about sleep. Like what? Just like the main thing. Like what do you said you're like you could dive deeper into it, but like what? Like how
Yeah,
much does that really? That's
sleep is huge,
for?
man. That's why all the football players that talk about having a sleep number bed, it costs like I don't know, like 5 grand or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it actually is really important. And that's actually going back to the baseball player I was talking to, Bowden Francis. We talked about sleep for a bit as well. So the interesting thing about sleep is this: three key things about sleep. If you get even an hour less of sleep, that makes you perform worse. That makes your mood perform worse. The less sleep you get from the optimal amount that you need, and everyone's different, and I'll get to that in just a second. The less sleep you get, the worse and worse you're able to perform. Your mind actually performs worse. The accuracy of your mind, I forgot what exactly they meant, but when they said accuracy, it's in one of the research papers. I don't remember, but I think it's like I forgot how they measured it. But anyway, the accuracy of your mind performs worse the less sleep you get, and it starts at an hour. So if you're supposed to get 7.5 hours of sleep, you get 6.5. You're already going less. If you get 5 hours, you're even less off. That's why sleep is so critical and so
Yeah.
important. The second thing that happens is, or second thing is, you can't train yourself to sleep less. So don't be like, I'm gonna train myself to sleep 5 hours. I got this. It doesn't matter. Like you can't do it. They've tried it
Yeah.
to where over the course of like a month or two, they slowly decreased it. All those negative effects still took place. It happened a bit
Mhm.
slower because they kind of did it gradually, but all the negative effects still happened, except
Yeah.
for some really odd. Some people that did it happen to, but you can't train yourself to sleep less. Even an hour less, you perform worse. So how much sleep do you need is a bigger question. Everyone's different. If you really want to find out how much sleep you need, you're on vacation right now, I think. So if you really want to find out how much sleep you need, go to bed when you're tired and just wake up naturally and then do that for there's no specific set of days. I dug for this, couldn't find it. Do it for like 5 days. If you find out, like if you have like an Apple Watch or whatever, or just kind of mark it, you can find out like, all right, I sleep 8.5 hours on average. So I need 8.5 hours. So if you're
Anything less than that would be.
anything less than that, I'm taking some stuff out. Now, also, it's like you sleep 7.5 hours, like it happens, but 8.5 is your optimal number. If you're lucky, you're doing 7.5 hours and you feel great. and you're like, oh snap, I need 7.5. That's sweet. That's it. So
Yeah.
I have a bit extra time for my day. If you're unlucky, you have 9 hours, which is unfortunate because it is what it is. But it's a balance thing. But that's how you can find out how much sleep you need. If you don't have that kind of time on your hands, then just sleep 8 hours, see how you feel. If you feel great after like in for a couple nights, because you can't recharge your battery fully in one night if you have consistently chronically poor sleep. It takes some days. That's what someone's like, I slept for 12 hours, I still feel horrible, because your body can't recalibrate that quickly. It takes consecutive days to do that.
Yeah.
So if you sleep 8 hours for a few days, you feel great, try sleeping 7.5 hours. And if you feel worse, then like probably like 7 hours or 45 minutes. That's your optimal sleep. Things you can do as well is some other nuanced things too. On average, it takes you, if you're tired, roughly 5 minutes to fall asleep. If you're not tired, it takes you 10 to 15 minutes to fall asleep. So if you don't have an Apple Watch, you can track your stuff. If you're tired, be like, I lay down at like 5 minutes, and then I lay down at 10. I probably fell asleep at 10:05.
Mhm.
Ways to help you fall asleep is doing the breathing thing. I do this all the time because your mind is probably constantly racing. Just
Yeah.
practicing meditation, just being in the present, starting with your breath, like just focus on my breathing, going in into my lungs, out of my nostrils. I hear like the fan blowing. I feel like the sheets like on like my shoulder. Just being in the present moment will slow your brain down. And the breathing too, like breathing fully in will also like slow your heart rate down. So it'll actually help you fall asleep.
Mhm.
Little nuances. Let's talk about naps. Actually, let's talk about REM sleep. I'm pretty sure I still have this correct. It's been a while now. But your body goes into cycles every hour and a half, is like the wave cycles. I believe that's REM. At the top, you're more awake. At the bottom, you're deep sleep.
Yeah.
So the distance, the time between each top, I think is an hour and a half. So if you go to sleep and you want to wake up feeling pretty awake, and we can dive into caffeine too. Caffeine's a big one. Um, Caffeine's interesting. So I think that's a good topic. So if you set it at an hour and a half intervals per se, for example, was that 7.5 hours? If you fall asleep and sleep for 7.5 hours, you should wake up at REM sleep. At REM sleep is when you're most awake. So you should have like a good jolt or whatever. Naps, 20-minute nap is a good recharge point. So if you do like a cat nap, 20 or 30 minutes, I think I read this somewhere in a science book. This was like 10 years ago though. I think it's like 20 or 30 minutes of a nap is equivalent to drinking like a cup of coffee or something like that. That's how they equated it to. It gives like a quick boost, but doesn't make you like, if you sleep for an hour and you wake up groggy, that's that cycle thing. Like you woke up at the bottom of your cycle.
Cycle.
That's why you feel groggy. So like 20 minutes, you don't get that deep. Or if you're gonna take a long nap, an hour and a half, you should hit at the top of the cycle again. You should wake up pretty rejuvenated. That's sleep. Any questions on that before I dive into caffeine real quick?
No, I, that's good. That's good.
Well, caffeine is interesting. So caffeine, I'll explain the science on this so people can get it. I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. It's adenosine or adenosine. I forgot what it is. Anyway, one of the core aspects of caffeine. What it does, if people remember like high school bio class, is you have your neurons in your brain, and your neurons have these receptors, and that's how chemicals get passed. In between the synapses of the receptors. Blah 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 jargon. Nonetheless, what caffeine does is this: adenosine or adenosine, whatever it is what tells your body naturally that it's time to go to sleep. You get tired. When you sleep, it kind of filters all that stuff through your system. And then as you wake up during the day, that builds up in your body and then eventually tells your body, hey, it's time to go to sleep. That's how you regulate your rhythm, your carnadian, whatever thing is. You regulate your sleep rhythm. What caffeine does is it blocks the receptors that pick up adenosine or adenosine, whatever the case would be. It blocks those receptors. So therefore, that's why you don't feel sleepy. What
Mhm.
happens is caffeine has a half life. Oh, I didn't get this wrong. Caffeine has a half life of 5 hours. So what happens is when people hit their midnight crash, you can use caffeine to your advantage. I'll get that in a second. But what happens is when people crash is, let's say they take 2 cups of coffee, which is like 200 milligrams of caffeine roughly, right? Then you're they block all these receptors. And what your brain does then is like, I'm not getting tired. That's weird. It builds more receptors. It's like building more highways. And all this
Mhm.
adenosine is just building up. And after 5 hours, by that time, your caffeine is now at 100 milligrams. So if you drink caffeine at 7, 5 hours later is what, 12? And then by
12,
around 3
yeah.
o'clock, most of your caffeine is out of your system. Now your neurons have all these extra receptors and all this adenosine. And it all rushes your system. And then you crash. That's how you get really tired. That's why that happens.
Yeah.
So the issue with caffeine, if you really want to optimize your energy, like top notch on like a whole nother level, what happens is because caffeine stays in your system for so long, it takes like 18 to 24 hours to fully clear your system. So if you have 200 after 10 hours, which is like 3 o'clock, now you have 25 milligrams. And then eventually, like you, whatever. So the American runs on Dunkin' that's literally true because people drink coffee in the morning, drink coffee in the afternoon. By the time you wake up to drink another cup of coffee, you still have caffeine in your system the
From
entire time.
before. Yeah.
So like it literally runs on Dunkin'. It's not like a saying, it's actually
It's
truth.
legit.
It's legit. So what happens though, and the issue is let's say this is your body when it's fully awake in the morning.
Mm.
What happens is all that adenosine builds up, and when you wake up, your body's in a deficit. People that need caffeine to function is because your body should be here if it was like regulated normally, but you're in a deficit. So when you drink caffeine, it actually just brings your body up a little bit before. So that's why they feel better because you're in a deficit already. You're bringing your body up to feel better. So if you don't want to have that, and that becomes an issue because then you run on caffeine and whatever, if you don't have it, it becomes a problem. 2 weeks is all it takes to do two things. One, get rid of your withdrawal symptoms because you have withdrawal symptoms with caffeine. The withdrawal is that you're in a deficit when you wake up, so you feel groggy and tired and cranky or whatever.
Mhm.
After 2 weeks, those go away. And then also after 2 weeks, your tolerance goes away because your tolerance kicks in for caffeine. You need more and more and more and more and more to hit this threshold. Now you need 3 cups to get back to baseline.
Mhm.
So after about 2 weeks, for most people, both of those go away. What's cool about that and how you can use it to your advantage is all you really need is like 50 milligrams of caffeine, which is like a half a cup to get you
Yeah.
like a boost. So this is based on reports of people like, hey, 25 milligrams to get you there too, but people had like 50 to 100. They felt a really good boost in their energy and all the things you want to feel for caffeine. That's all they need to get there. Now, caffeine is very easily to build a tolerance to. Even drinking caffeine like 1 cup a day will build your tolerance, and you will also hit withdrawal symptoms. So if you really want to like optimize your caffeine performance, drink like a cup of coffee every couple of days, 50
Mhm.
milligrams to like 100 milligrams. That'll get you the boost that you want without hitting the withdrawal symptoms and without building a tolerance to it.
Mhm.
So if you want to like use that to your advantage,
Yeah.
then you could do like, I know I have early days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. I'm gonna drink caffeine Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and no other days,
Mhm.
technically.
I didn't know a lot about that, especially how it affects like when you wake up and like how you're feeling. That's a big part of it too. I feel like sometimes I drink a little like too much of it, so it affects like my sleep and stuff like that.
It's tiny stuff, but if you start rolling into like the 1% better rule, I think people misquote that all the time. People think 1% better is like getting 1%. I'm sure it's used in football all the time. 1% better, you get every time you work out, you get 1% better. But the 1% better rule, and it comes from the British. It's a British coach who had them win like a whole bunch of championships. What it really means is taking everything to the most minuscule level. Like the sheets that they slept on was a very specific sheet that they slept on to optimize the most perfect temperature to be able to get the best sleep possible. Like
Mhm.
that is the 1% rule. Like the chair that you sit in, it makes you have the best posture possible. The the gear that you use when you work out, like don't use those shorts. That make you burn energy faster. Use these shorts. These are more
Mhm.
aerodynamic and like more that is the 1% rule.
Yeah.
So like the whole caffeine thing, the sleep thing, you're starting to get into that 1% ish rule type of area, which is I mean I couldn't do that. I wouldn't need someone else. I'm like hire someone separately the 1% in my life, but like that's
Yeah.
what it gets
That's
into. But
that's
if
crazy. Yeah. How deep it goes down into that
yeah,
is definitely something to think about. It's like damn.
yeah, which is
But
something you could use, like as you if that's your goal. Like NFL is a 1% thing, so
mm,
if you start 1%, if you, but that's like I think 1% rules in game stuff. Like you got to have self discipline, you got to have confidence, you got to have that stuff squared away first. before you
Yeah.
start diving to 1%. But if you're there, and like you're there, then you can start diving into 1%. Like, oh, let me 1% this a bit better. Let me 1% that a bit better, and
Mhm.
just optimize as much as possible. That's like, do you know who Novak Djokovic is?
Yeah, the tennis player.
Yeah, he's like a 1%er, like type thing. Like it's a hyperbolic time chamber. I'm not talking like Aaron Rodgers 1%, like going off to the Amazon type thing,
Yeah.
but but I'm talking about like that's like 1%. Tom Brady's like 1% rule type thing. Like that is the territory that I operate in with as far as like Luke whatever his name is from the Panthers. Like he's 1% when it comes to film stuff. Like if you
Yeah.
start 1% in your life, then you get into all the nuances, and that should, I think that would be something that for you at your level where you're at, just thinking about how do I make all this a bit more optimized, and just Googling stuff like what is, I don't know, I can't even, I'm sure there's an optimal temperature for your room to sleep in. Like
Mhm.
you could do that.
Yeah.
What's the
The
optimal
little stuff,
temperature?
yeah.
Like the little stuff and stuff of that sort. Like sheets is a really one thing. Like there's mattresses that cool your body to get the perfect temperature and whatnot. Those cost a few grand though. But like there's stuff like that you can use to
Mhm.
be able to just optimize like crazy.
Yeah, no, thank you for, having me on for, this was definitely a good time. You know, I would definitely, do this sort of thing again, so thank you for having me on.
Hey, let me know. Let me know.